Today, I'm going to be telling you guys how to get the cleanest and sharpest images for Instagram. What's up, guys? My name is Han from Hantography. So today is just going to be for photos, and I'm mainly focusing on Instagram today, but it should work for other things like Facebook, Pinterest, other social media things. So essentially there are 4 steps that I feel you need to take in order to achieve this. All right, so I'm gonna turn on this fucking light. Step number 1 is you have to nail your focus. So whatever you're shooting, make sure your subject is in focus. So for me, I do a lot of portrait photography. So my subject is a person. And the general rule of thumb for shooting people is you want to focus in on their eyes. If your shot is shallow, there's only so much that you can do in order to fix it. So make sure you nail your focus, whether your subject is a person, is rocks, really fucking rocks, that's what I'm gonna say. Whether your subject is a person or landscape, whatever, make sure you are nailing your focus, because that plays such a huge role in whether your image will look sharp online. So step number 2 is sharpening in Lightroom and Photoshop. So let's bring you guys in and I'll show you 2 techniques that I use to sharpen my images in post. So I'm gonna show you guys how to sharpen both Lightroom and Photoshop. We're gonna do Lightroom first and then Photoshop. If you open the photo in Lightroom and you take it to Photoshop, I wouldn't recommend sharpening in Lightroom when you go to Photoshop. And then if you do it in Photoshop, I wouldn't recommend doing it after you come back. We'll take this image here. So if you go down to this panel where it says detail panel, there is a sharpening tool right here. So what I do is I just crank this, but what this does is it sharpens the whole photo. So what we want is to sharpen only the details that matter. So that's why you have this slider here. If I hold Alt, then you can see the white shows you like what areas it's actually sharpening. So I just want to sharpen the details that matter right about there. And sometimes what I'll do is I'll click on this and then I'll hover over what I want to focus on. So in this case, it's the camera right here. So hold Alt and then you can see right about there. And then I honestly crank this up to like around 100. Cool. And that's how I sharpen in Lightroom. So let's take it to Photoshop now. So I have this photo right here. What you do is you want to merge all the layers, merge all the visible layers together. So you have this. I'm gonna do Control-Shift-U. And then from there, you wanna get rid of the color so it doesn't sharpen any of the color. And then you're gonna do a high pass filter. And I do 0.9. Okay, from here, change it to linear light. And then if I zoom in, you can see that the whole image is sharpened. But then again, same concept with Lightroom. I don't want to sharpen everything. So what I do is add a mask. So hold Alt, left click this mask, get your brush tool, make sure you're on the white, and then I paint in the parts that I want to sharpen. So his eyebrows, his nose, lips, do the hair up here too. And then with this method, you can also duplicate. So Command or Control J, and then you can duplicate the layer. And then you can also tone it down as well. So maybe I'll delete this layer mask. And then you can tone it down, turn down the opacity. So you have a little bit more control in Photoshop when it comes to sharpening. Awesome. And that's how I sharpen in Photoshop. Let's take you in the Lightroom. We're gonna do the export settings for Lightroom first, and then we're gonna do the Photoshop one. So with the same photo, I right click, go to export, and then here are my settings. Export location doesn't matter, file naming doesn't really matter. It's not a video, so file settings. So make sure it's a JPEG, sRGB because we're putting it online. If you wanted to print it, then I would do like Adobe RGB. A lot of people like turning down the quality because they think that Instagram actually compresses your image if it's too high quality. So They turn it down to 90. I've seen that in a lot of videos, but I haven't seen anything like that, so I keep that at 100. Then down here, so dimensions for Instagram are 4x5. So the width would be 1080 by 1350. So we're gonna change this to 1080 so it does not compress my image. And then you keep the pixels per inch at 72 for all online stuff. And if you want to print it, then you do 300. And then output sharpening. I do low sharpening. It depends on how much sharpening you do before this, but I keep it at low. And if anything, I can always sharpen it later, like in the Instagram app. So screen sharpening. And then if you hit export, and then I can choose where I want to save it. Let's go back to this one in Photoshop here. So I want to crop this, so I know the ratio is 4x5. So make sure that's at 4x5, reposition, like right about there. Hit enter. Okay, so once I have my composition, then go up here, go to export, export as. A lot of people do save for web. You can do that too. I just like doing export as for some reason, because I'm weird. So same thing here. You're gonna change the width to 1080. That should change it to 1350. Perfect. And then make sure it's convert to sRGB. Perfect. And then you hit export and decide where you want to save it. Awesome. And that is how I export. And those are my export settings for both Lightroom and Photoshop. Step number 4 is actually getting your image from your computer to your phone. For me, I have a Windows PC, and so I transfer that to an iPhone. And the way that I do that is by using WeTransfer. It's a free website that lets you send up to 2 gigs before you actually have to start paying for it. So I use that, just drag and drop into WeTransfer. I send myself a Facebook message with the link, and then I open Facebook Messenger in my phone. And that's how I open up the images. I have the WeTransfer app, yeah. And I feel like that keeps the integrity of the image the best from Google Drive. Honestly, if I had a MacBook and I still have my iPhone, I would definitely use AirDrop. I feel like that's the best if you have Apple products across the board. If this helped you out in any way, please leave a like. Consider subscribing. I will be releasing more content purely dedicated to teaching you guys everything that I know about film and photography. So if that's something that you guys like, subscribe. Please subscribe. Have a fucking fantastic, delicious day.